podcast of the Jason Gregor Show from TSN 1260. Powered by Sky Residences. Live up, play down in the heart of Ice District. Stylish 1- and 2-bedroom homes starting from $320,000. See it for yourself at liveskycondos.com.
411. Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260. Happy Monday. I think I said Tuesday earlier. It's like I was dreaming it was a long weekend again. Felt like a long weekend. A lot of shoveling this weekend.
Oh, I saw you working on a project. The wood chips didn't work out?
Yeah.
In your kind of play?
Well, yeah. I don't even know what you call it, dude. In the backyard. We have the lawn, but then there was like a play area, which is fine. And, it's a swing set and everything in there.
Yeah.
But they went with wood chips because that kind of matches the decor. But son was like, yeah, no. After a year, I was just like, why don't you play on it? So I asked him, I was like, what's wrong? And basically the wood chips, when he wants to crawl around on it, just get slivers in his hand. So, and they're light, it's no big deal. So I just had to move them all out. It was 30 wheelbarrows. There are a lot of wood chips in there. So move them all out, move the swing set and everything. And now I will be putting sand in the area, and then they'll be putting rubber around the rest. So then everybody, I've talked to a few people, because it's too big to have all sand. It would just be a cat haven. So that would suck.
Right.
So I have enough of a sand part of it, about 5 feet by 6 feet. And then the rest will be rubber chips for him to jump off the swing set and not hurt himself.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Yeah, because I thought it was originally all sand.
No.
And then you're going to have a house full of sand.
Yeah.
You're going to have the beach. And your wife, great woman, but I don't know any woman that loves constant sand coming into the house, right?
No, I don't know any man who does.
Yeah, it's fair.
Right.
Fair
like
point.
Sand, it's just a little grain that's quite unnerving.
I actually don't like. I've actually gone on record that if I ever run for city council, I'll ban all sand from any public park in Edmonton.
Yeah, you're an anti-sand guy.
100%.
That's okay. It's okay. Let's get to Struds On now, brought to you by Liquor Depot. Did you know they deliver? You can download the Drizzly app today to help to have your favorites delivered right to your door. I noticed on the weekend, Friday, someone tweeted me a picture that at Liquor Depot, they had China White shots pre-made for you. So you can order those at liquordepot.ca.
It's time for Struds On Beer.
There's a bouquet of enjoyment coming in my mouth there.
The gym.
Tank tops on guys are starting to bother me at the gym. There, I said it. It really is bothering me. I don't know what it is lately.
Drake.
Sit down, drink your popcorn, and that's it.
It's time for Struds On.
Passwords. So I think I've talked about this before. I don't know if it was a Struds On. We've just had a discussion. But this password situation is getting out of control. And here at work, I think it's every 2 or 3 months we have to adjust our passwords for security measures. The last thing I'd want is someone breaking in and looking at my emails. I've seen my buddies forward these stupid jokes. I don't want anyone getting that kind of information. And I get that we got to protect ourselves. I understand all of that. I get it. But there are so many passwords out there, and I find that I keep joining more clubs or more, that's fantasy football leagues, or I've got a different email for this or whatever. I've got all these different accounts now. And I now have so many different variations of different passwords. My home Wi-Fi, they're just everywhere. You can't, if I have one, I have 30. And they're all slightly different because, this one you have to have a caps. This one you have to have X number of letters. This one you have to have X number of characters total. And then you have to change it. Like here at work, we have to change every now and then. So I keep changing that one. Like it just screws me up. There was one day I came in here and work. I couldn't remember my password because I've changed it so many times. And I just recently changed it again. And the reason this is on the top of my forehead or on the top of my mind is because I just went through it today. I had to change my password. And even as I'm speaking right now, I'm doubting if I remember what my password is. So it's really complicated. And I guess there's some software out there you can use, Greg, or something, but it's getting so out of control.
What do you mean software?
Well, I thought
that picks your, because Struddy, here's what because I agree with you. It's kind of annoying. This is just a new thing in the last probably year and a half at our station, where every 2 months it comes up. You have 7 days, and the thing is, one time I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't change it, and then it was like you couldn't believe how hard it was for me. I couldn't log in, then I had to go through a whole process. It took me like 2 days to get back in the system. So what I do, because they require it to have number. And then certain, you have to 8 characters. It includes at least one number.
Sure.
And then one symbol. So all I've done is I start out with, let's say, 19. Then the word with a few ambersands in there.
Yeah.
And now the next time it's 20 and the same word. And then it's 21 and the same word. Now I'm just going up. So when I get to 100, whatever. So to me, I basically have it now. I just go up in order. Can't forget. I'm like, oh, what was the last number? Okay, good. So now it's either one of these two. Simple. Then I never have to change it. Because the other thing, Struddy, I have the same passwords on everything.
Across the board.
Except for my work. That's it. I have a password that, except my home, my computer. That's as simple as possible because I'm like, well, if someone breaks in my house, they want to take my computer, knock your socks off, whatever. Like they're going to steal it, they're going to steal it. So other than that, though, like if I sign in on you have to sign in for that. I have the exact same one every time. And I'm like, you know what? If someone decodes it, awesome. But I'm kind of like, I don't do online banking. I'm a little bit, I'm still kind of old school. I don't do a lot of purchasing where you have to give out your credit card to like rogue sites or anything. I just don't do a lot of that stuff. So like I have just started to do the Audi transfer, but it's about it.
You don't do like that is, I think it's pretty secure. I feel good about it.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't do it from a cafe at a Starbucks.
I understand that. It's, I know, I'm just saying that's the one thing where I'm probably a little old school. And as you know, I like to carry cash around. So I go to the bank machine. I rarely go to the bank machine anymore. Actually, I started a year and a half ago. I said, I'm done. I'm done getting screwed over out of my own money where it's basically $5 to take money out of the bank machine when it's not your bank machine because they charge you $2 or $3 at the point of entry.
Yes.
And then your own bank charges you on the other end. So they're double dipping. I'm like, I'm paying $5 for my own money. I'm done. So now when I go to the bank, I just take out like $400 cash and then that keeps me good for a few weeks. And then I go back and get it again.
Well, why don't you just go to your own bank?
Well, that's what I do. I just go to but sometimes, if you're out and you're all of a sudden it doesn't have your bank there. I'm like, no, I refuse to do it. So I haven't done that now in a year and a half. I refuse to take money out of a bank machine that's not my bank.
Yeah, but you just got to, I never do that.
And on Scotiabank now, they have it at 7-Eleven, so it's easy.
I didn't realize what an ampersand was.
You don't know what ampersand is, really?
I just looked it up. I had no idea. You could have told me, you could ask me what it was. I love the word though. I might start using that in my password.
Well,
it's only characters
easy.
I haven't used. I don't think I've got so many characters. It's unbelievable. I have different ones for like online banking. My email's different. The work is here different. It's amazing how many different passwords. Like if I ever died, my wife has to get into all of our stuff. She may as well just just give up because she's not getting into anything because there's not one consistent thing.
No,
and my memory I must have exceptionally good retention because I have so many different passwords.
Well, I could probably just figure it out. Like right now, it's probably Barkley. 18, right? Guaranteed. That's what it would be for any new one. Oh, Barkley. Yeah. 18 for sure. I get it. But yeah, it's become a little bit too, we're almost, and I say this because I'm a little leery of, you see people getting scammed out of this or that. So, but I do find that you need a password to get into a site that I'm like, well, no one's going to steal my information there's no information to steal here. What do I need? Like your WestJet points. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't need a 12 symbol password for your WestJet points.
No, I don't think there's a big deal. Look at this guy. I have the same start and end for my passwords. I just swap out the middle word with the website name, J. That's interesting, actually. But
so it's like Pete WestJet Smith every time. Pete,
right?
TSN 1260 Smith.
Yeah, that actually I don't mind that. But the beginning and end. But see, what gets me is when is this one a capital or not a capital? Like that's why I always get burned. So let's say it's
I don't use capital.
Coconuts.
Just use an ampersand, buddy. Use an ampersand.
We have a lot of question. What is an ampersand? Well, ampersand is the sign for and. It's a Latin, the one that kind of looks like a G a little bit. It's actually one of my favorite characters on the keyboard. If you really want to know the truth, it's beautiful. It's also a restaurant in Edmonton. I didn't know.
Ampersand is?
Ampersand 27.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wouldn't it just easier to put the sign like Prince? Don't use the word?
I would like to change my name to just ampersand.
I like that name.
As a symbol. You could just sign it. Ampersand.
Well, it's one of the cooler symbols in rotation. Like you look at a keyboard, like the @ sign, that doesn't do anything for me.
Hey, Gregor, is your password 123 passwords?
Yeah.
I wish. No. But my work one is pretty simple. I'm like, there's nothing on my work email. I'm like, seriously,
no.
Like It's emails we get from listeners and fellow coworkers. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's make sure that this is locked down. Okay, we need a code of 12 characters because something here is very secretive. Like, I'd have no problem. There's no... Well, we get the odd email from a listener that's a little bit shady every now and then. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. No, it's not easy. It's not easy to live in today's technology world.
Especially when you're strutting. Struts On, brought to you by Liquor Depot. They're always on sale. Visit a store near you to see what's on sale today. LiquorDepot.ca. When we come back, we'll go around the NHL. Who's next getting traded out of Montreal? Although I will say this, he's made a lot of bad trades. He did fairly well in the Max Pacioretty trade. Did Marc Bergevin. But they still don't have a center. At least a natural center. We'll discuss it next in the Gregor Show, presented by Granville Casino.
This is a podcast of the Jason Gregor Show from TSN 1260. Powered by Sky Residences. Live up, play down in the heart of Ice District. Stylish 1 and 2 bedroom homes starting from $320,000. See it for yourself at liveskycondos.com.
429 Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260. Jason Gregor, Jason Strudwick, Connor Halley with you. As we go around the NHL, brought to you by Cougar Paint and Collision. There, when you need them, call or stop in. No appointment required. They'll see you right away. You can trust Cougar Paint and Collision, 88th Street and Yellowhead Trail. And the Montreal Canadiens make a big move as they ship out Max Pacioretty to Vegas for Thomas Tatar. Also, Vegas eats basically $500,000 of his salary, so he's a $4.8 million cap hit now. And they get Nick Suzuki and a second-round draft pick. Conor McKenna from TSN 690 in Montreal joins us. Connor, I'm sure Habs fans are maybe frustrated when they see the Max Pacioretty signs a 4-year extension, not a 6 or a 7-year extension. But I don't know if he would have signed that there. I guess let's start with the thing. Last week, Alan Walsh comes out. My player never asked for a trade. And Bergevin's like, I guarantee you he asked for a trade. Who do you believe?
Oh, geez. I'm going to choose one. You know what? I think I'm going to go with Marc Bergevin and Jeff Molson on this one. Just because I frankly, and maybe Pacioretty asked for a trade, and maybe the way that Alan Walsh, his agent, wants to have his cake and eat it too is by sort of saying, he's saying this, and maybe Pacioretty hasn't asked for a trade since he retained Walsh, but he only did that at the draft on June 26th. What Bergevin seems to be saying, what the Canadiens seem to be saying, is that he asked for a trade during the season. So I think in a way they're both lying, and in a way that they're both telling the truth.
All right, so you make the trade. It seemed like this had happened prior to the start. I mean, that golf tournament that Pacioretty was hosting, it was the most awkward between Olsen and he and Bergevin, the GM. It looked really awful and weird. So, are you satisfied with, it seems like Bergevin's been chasing that unicorn of a top-line center. Are you satisfied they now have, in some of the guys they've acquired, maybe someone close to what could be like that?
Well, yeah, maybe, sure, but that's not, it's far from a sure thing, as you guys know, that no matter where a guy's drafted, it's impossible to know whether or not that's going to work out. And who knows if this kid Suzuki, who, look, based on the gifs I've seen and the highlights I've seen, he looks like a hell of a player, but I'm not going to pretend that I've been scouting him. And it looks like he's going to be a big part of Canada at the World Juniors this year, and hopefully he will pan out in a dream world as a top 6 centerman in the National Hockey League. But it's far from a guarantee. But yeah, they're better stocked than they were at this time a few months ago. There's no question. With this kid Kotkaniemi that they got at number 3, with Ryan Poehling, who they took in the latter part of the first round last summer, and he's had a good year. He's come along really well. It looks a lot better than it has, but we're still a long way from them having those guys in the National Hockey League, and there's no guarantee that any of them are going to pan out, let alone all 3.
Yeah, very fair point. What led to the animosity between the Pacioretty camp and the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, I think my take on this, and this is just, I'm just my opinion here. I'm not going to pretend that I'm inside Marc Bergevin's head, but I think that Bergevin thought that he was not a good captain, that he wasn't the right guy to be the captain of the team. And This was mitigated. This was sort of demonstrated, I should say, by the way that he responded at the end of the season this year, and said that it was an attitude problem in the Canadiens locker room. That was the big problem that they had this year, which struck me as being an absolutely ridiculous comment, but it doesn't mean that he didn't believe it. You know, the bigger problem was Carey Price had a .900 save percentage. He decided to bring in Carl Olsner to try to help the defense. He had a horrible season, and most of us who watched Olsner in the last couple of years in Washington saw this coming. He somehow didn't. And he made a couple of other sort of baffling moves, so letting Andrei Markov go, not re-signing Alexander Radulov, and changing the makeup of the team. But what he did by sort of blaming this quote-unquote attitude problem, this abstract concept of attitude, was, I think, and I think Max Pacioretty felt this way too, that he threw Pacioretty under the bus. He was blaming Pacioretty for what happened. Why do I say that? Because Carey Price was injured, so he wasn't there in the room. Shea Weber was injured. He wasn't there in the room for the vast majority of the season. Who was there? Which veteran player was there to take this in the teeth? Max Pacioretty was, to sort of face the music night in and night out. And I think Bergevin, by making that attitude comment, did sort of hang it on Pacioretty. The rumors were around Pacioretty from guys like Gregor and McKenzie, though, long before that press conference. But I think that might have been what soured Pacioretty on the Canadiens and soured Pacioretty on Bergevin. As far as what soured Bergevin and Pacioretty, I think maybe like a lot of other people in this market and beyond, he wanted more from Pacioretty. Maybe just a little more of that fire that you'd like to see from a guy who's out there leading by example, willingness to use his size a little bit more than he demonstrated he was willing to do throughout his career. And maybe Bergevin was a little bit unhappy with that. So both of those things and both of those sides of the equation led to a bit of an explosion that we saw culminate earlier today.
We're talking all things Montreal Canadiens with TSN 690's Conor McKenna. Conor, can you just let me know who are going to be the top two lines for this team?
Well, I guess right now Jonathan Drouin is still penciled in as the first line center. Which is not great. And then Philip Deneau is probably your second line center, which is also not great. Deneau's a good player, but probably more of a 3. And Drouin is probably not a center at all in a perfect world. So those are your centers. And then you've got a combination of Max Domi, Brendan Gallagher, Arturi Lehkonen might be a guy who could step in there, who had a pretty nice rookie season 2 years ago and a bit of a step back last year. Maybe they're hoping that some of the younger players in the system, maybe a guy like Nikita Sherbak, who was taken in the first round a few years ago, can make that step into the National Hockey League. There's a bit of a mixed bag. They've got some decent wingers, and then maybe Thomas Tatar is one of those guys, although he wasn't good enough to play in the top 12 for the Vegas Golden Knights for most of the playoffs last year, let alone the top 6. So there are definitely some question marks. There's no question. I mean, the forwards are one thing, but I think the defense is probably even worse, especially without Shea Weber to start the season. Guys, I mean, this is not a good roster. And unlike what you're looking at there in Edmonton, there's no real stars up front to at least sort of bank a little bit of hope on. It's a tough situation here. There's some good players. There's very few great ones.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that. And not to beat up the Canadiens, I don't get joy in beating up the other markets. But when I'm looking at this team, like at best, they're just maybe hanging on to try to get a playoff spot. But with Weber out, and depending on how Carey's able to come back, and if they get one or two injuries to really anyone in their top 6 or top 4D that aren't great to start with, this could quickly unravel into right away into an early lottery pick.
And even if they don't get those injuries, they could still be really bad.
Sure,
I mean, it's conceivable that with the players that they have, they won't even need the built-in excuse of the injuries, although they will have it with Weber. At least to start the season. But, geez, if you're leaning on Carl Olsner in 2018 to play significant minutes on your team, you're going to have a hard time. Especially, look, I mean, this is a division that now John Tavares has just joined the show, but the Leafs are a good team. The Bruins are a good team. The Lightning are a very good team. The Florida Panthers are knocking on the door. The Sabres look to be on the way up. And then there's the barn fire down Highway 417. That's the Ottawa Senators. I don't know how much they need to worry about them. And then there's the Red Wings. It's a weird division of haves and have-nots, but there's some good teams in this division that could potentially beat up on the Canadiens pretty badly. Jeff Petrie, you guys know Jeff Petrie. God bless him. He's not a number one. He's probably not a top pairing guy, but that's what they're going to be asking him to be right off the bat this season. So that's going to be difficult too. It's just there's a lot of sort of square pegs and round holes here in Montreal, and Marc Bergevin is trying to hammer them all in. I have a feeling it's going to be a tough one.
Talking Montreal Canadiens with Conor McKenna from TSN 690 Montreal. So, I think we've established that this roster is not good enough, and it's been like that for a while. What's going on with Marc Bergevin, the GM, Olsen, the owner, or Molson, I say, the owner? How does this, is this just go on indefinitely, or what do you see how it plays out with a general manager who, from the outside, doesn't look like he's getting the job done?
Yeah, well, he doesn't look like it much from the inside here in Montreal. He's getting the job done either, believe me. He's got a contract, and it's a pretty lucrative one. I think he makes $5 million a season, and he's got it, I think, through 2022. Now, I can't say this with a certainty, but a lot of people seem to think that that's a significant factor here, that's part of why Jeff Molson hasn't let him go. The other one is that, maybe he's convinced Jeff Molson that he is the guy, that he is capable of fixing the mess that he's created. And it's hard to really think of it or refer to it as anything other than a mess unless you're looking at things through the rosiest of rose-colored glasses. So this is it. I guess he somehow has the trust of Jeff Molson, and to that end, he doesn't really have the trust of the fans here. Recently, someone did a poll here in Quebec across the province of fans, just a random sampling of 8,000 fans. Guys, he had 83% of fans who responded saying that he is no longer the man for the job. I mean, that is an overwhelming number right there. That is his approval rating it makes Donald Trump look like JFK at his prime. It's not a good situation for this guy right now. So anyway, it's going to be fascinating to see, but why he has the trust of ownership, why he still has a job, I can't answer that question because it makes as little sense to me here in Montreal as it does to you guys in Edmonton.
Well, Connor, I never liked when they hired Claude Julien right from the get-go. I don't think he's an offensive-minded coach enough. Now, granted, they don't have any centers anyway, but you just look at from the day he got fired in Boston, how quickly their offense turned around and how quickly Montreal's offense hit the ditch. I don't think that's just a massive coincidence. I think it's a fact that he is so focused on not allowing mistakes and defense that when you talk about character and culture of a team, I think part of their culture is a lack of ability and willingness from their coach to change.
Yeah, it's hard for me to disagree with that. I think that led to sort of the end of Claude Julien in Boston. And the other thing is, look, if you're going to talk about a team that's trying to sort of do the rebuild thing, as the Canadiens are allegedly trying to do, is Claude Julien really the guy you want working with young players in today's National Hockey League? I think there's a lot of people, and I think, I might be talking to a couple of them who think that, maybe Claude Julien hasn't adjusted in the last 5, 6, 7 years to what the modern NHL is, and that is more of a speed, skill, and really just offensively focused game. It's not so much limiting opposing scoring chances as creating chances of your own, and they're not doing those things. So that's another thing. There's another guy with a long-term contract who's making about $5 million a year. That's a lot to move on from, and I think that might be another part of the situation when it comes to Bergevin. From Molson's perspective, if he gets rid of Bergevin, how long until the new general manager says, "Yeah, I got to get rid of Claude Julien"? So that's a factor here as well. But I think it's well taken, and the point that you make about the Bruins, what's happened to them since letting him go, the Canadiens, what's happened to them since hiring him. I think it's hard to ignore that, despite the fact that there are some other mitigating factors, roster-based factors. I think it's definitely a valid point.
Well, Connor, should be no shortage of storylines in Montreal this season. Appreciate your time.
Can't wait. All right, cheers, boys.
That's Conor McKenna from TSN 690 in Montreal. Team to watch. Their defense, no Shea Weber. He's on record today saying he's definitely not rushing back from his injury, which is wise. Every player should say that. Should never rush back from an injury. It's not ideal at all. So he's out, and Jeff Petrie's a good defenseman if he's in your second pair. If he has to play top pairing minutes, eventually he'll get exposed. It's not a knock on him. Lots of guys are like that. You can play outside of your range for a while, Struds, but eventually it's going to hurt you. Because if he's up one, then that means now somebody from your third pair is going up to your second pair, and it just causes an endless string of problems for that team. No different than if Darnell Nurse is not in the starting lineup for the Edmonton Oilers on opening night. Now that means somebody has to play his second pair left defenseman for the Oilers that probably shouldn't be playing there, and now they're in trouble. So injuries are one thing, but contract negotiations, it really makes no sense to me why Nurse and the Oilers don't have a deal. All the numbers from either side are pretty clear cut. So there's clearly one side at this point who is either asking for too much or asking for too little. Depends which side of the ledger you sit on, but it's not good for either side. The Oilers need Nurse, and I think Nurse needs to play. That's how it goes. I was around the NHL, brought to you by Cougar Paint and Collision. There, when you need them, call or stop in. No appointment required. They'll see you right away. You can trust Cougar Paint and Collision. 5 questions when we return on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by Grand Villix.
This is a podcast of the Jason Gregor Show from TSN 1260, powered by Sky Residences. Live up, play down in the heart of Ice District. Stylish 1 and 2-bedroom homes starting from $320,000. See it for yourself at liveskycondos.com.
Happy Monday. Gregor and Strudwick, Connor Halley with you as we get to 5 questions brought to you by The Brick, saving you more on furniture, mattresses, appliances, and big screen TVs and home. To the ultimate bachelor leather couch where many of you laid on all weekend watching football. It's The Brick.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, gentlemen of the Oilers PTOs, which is most likely to crack the opening night roster?
All right, so just to recap, Alex Chiasson just signed one today. We've got Scotty Upshall and Jason Garrison. I'm going to put. I'm still in the Scotty Upshall camp. I think that he's a guy that can bring what the Oilers want. They want pace. They want upbeat. You know, you heard it talking about not necessarily being faster, but just playing with quicker and with more pace. I think that's what Scotty Upshall can bring this group. So I think Scotty has an inside track on starting this season with the Edmonton Oilers.
I actually think Jason Garrison will get a contract out of camp. You don't have Sekera, and if Nurse isn't signed, they're going to need somebody. So I'm going to go Garrison.
Does the Max Pacioretty trade change your expectations for the Vegas Golden Knights next season?
I don't think it impacts it that much, or expectations. No, I think, everything went well for the Vegas Golden Knights last year. Like, people were like, oh, you know what, Pacioretty and Stastny are better than Neal and Perron. Okay, that's fair. But is Stastny going to score 66 points? Is Pacioretty going to score 66? David Perron scored 66 points last year. I agree, overall history, that Pacioretty be a better winger, no question. But last year, David Perron, where everything was going right for that team, can they do that? Can they mirror what they do on defense? They don't have their the guy who played the most minutes on defense for 20 games. So I think Pacioretty sure will help them on the power play, but I still have concerns about Vegas. They're in a Pacific Division that doesn't have an elite team. They're not elite, so they'll be in the running. But no, it doesn't alter my expectations that much.
Well, there's only one way for them to go, which is down. I guess there's one spot up. They go as winning Stanley Cup, but they were, I guess, kind of second in the NHL this year, if that makes sense as far as being second in anything. It's not really a race, but they have only one way to go down, and that's down. And they've got a group of players that there's a massive high next year. Can they repeat that? You speak really well about Nate Schmidt being out for 20 games. Shea Theodore, just like Nurse, is still waiting outside. So you start to see without your two of your top defensemen, that's a big problem for the rest of the group there. I like the second line of Stastny and Pacioretty. I think that brings some stability. Not that they didn't have it last year, but I think it kind of replaces it. I think the one thing no one's really talked about is the cost for Pacioretty. Last year they traded a first, a second, and a third for Thomas Tatar, and then today or this morning, whenever, they traded a second rounder and Suzuki for him. So basically, you traded for Pacioretty a first, a second, a third, a second rounder, and Suzuki, who was a first rounder. Very expensive. I don't think that's great asset management.
No, you could make the argument, though. They got that Suzuki and the second for taking Erik Karlsson. Those were bonus gifted to them for getting Erik Karlsson. So it's basically got Karlsson and Pacioretty for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third. Right. 2 proven guys for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third. I'd take the 2 players over the 5 picks every day.
I suppose you can go back and say that, but the reality was they could have probably got this. Well, I guess I'd still move it to Tar, but it's a I think it's a steep price to pay for Pacioretty.
Coming off this weekend's win over the Calgary Stampeders, what will the Eskimos' record be in their final 6 games?
Well, you wrote it down really clearly. They play Winnipeg twice, Ottawa, Saskatchewan. Sorry, Winnipeg twice, Ottawa twice, BC and Saskatchewan. I really was. I thought that game was great on Saturday. I love the way that Mike Riley, after being pretty, not negative, but pretty frustrated after the game on Labor Day, and he came out and just dominated 6 touchdowns total, 3 in the air, 3 running, and that's your best player leading out. So I think that he's a guy who's getting dialed in. I think that they can. I'll put him down at 4-2.
Well, you look, they've got in Ottawa, then they're home to Winnipeg, in Saskatchewan, home to Ottawa, at BC, at Winnipeg. So Winnipeg and Ottawa, they play each of those teams twice, then you have BC and Saskatchewan. They didn't win in BC the last time, but the BC Lions, now they're going to be in a battle with Winnipeg. I think the Bombers, both games in Edmonton, I'm going to say those are 2 wins for the Eskimos. I think they'll beat Ottawa at home, so those are 3. Struds 4-2 is probably a safe bet for the Eskimos. I think at that point, probably an accurate one. If they get really hot, they might be able to squeeze out a 5th win. But I definitely don't see them going 3-3.
What was your biggest takeaway from Week 1 in the NFL so far?
Biggest takeaway. Well, it's one game. I never get too crazy about things. My biggest takeaway, I guess the Bills are as bad as I thought they'd be. Yeah, that was hammered home. I don't think there's any way to look at that team and think that they're going to have a major bounce back by any stretch of the imagination. They look really bad. And it's not a great situation to have to go now to a young rookie quarterback because the offensive line in front of him, as you mentioned, Connor, like that guy will just get crushed. So, yeah, the Bills are really bad for sure. Biggest surprise, though, is the Bucs.
Yeah. I just think that the takeaway is that I'm going to look forward to seeing what happens going forward is Andrew Luck and how he performed pretty well in his first game. So, what was it? First game in almost 2 years. So I've got Andrew Luck in there. What do you got, Connor, for that?
I was going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that offense. They've got the weapons. They've got a lot of very good receivers. And now just having a quarterback like Fitzpatrick, who's a veteran, who's not going to get fooled by too many things, can dissect defenses. He took his shots at times, and a lot of times they were wide open. So that was one for me. And another person I'm watching is Joe Flacco. The Ravens drafting Lamar Miller in the first round. I'm going to keep on watching Flacco and see what he does because it was against the Bills, but he had a very good game on Sunday. Final question, guys. Both Brooke Henderson and Joey Votto celebrating birthdays today. Outside of hockey, who's the best Canadian athlete right now?
Oh, that's not easy. I don't have Milos Raonic in that conversation. Do you have one you want to throw out there, Grace? You're chewing the mic right now.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
No, I'm going RJ Barrett. I think he's the best pure athlete out there who's a non-hockey player. Without question, I'll go with him.
Can I go non-hockey, or can I go hockey player non-male? Because I'm going to go Marie-Philippe Poulin. I love the way she plays. She's skilled, but she's such a hard worker.
You think she's better than Brooke Henderson?
Well, she's a damn good player. I just, for me, I gotta take this with a grain of salt. I'm a huge fan of hers. I just love how she just works. Mm-hmm. When you hear the people the way they talk about her, she's just an amazingly hard worker. Not suggesting that Brooks isn't Henderson, but I'll go in there. So
the other Canadian I would go is Lauren Duvernay-Tardif, the Doc. He's really good as a player, and then obviously ridiculously smart. I can't believe a pre-med like yourself didn't lean towards him. So maybe you're a fake pre-med.
Well, what about Ian Miller, the equestrian? Is he still competing?
Well, I don't know. You guys hang out on the weekends at the Seniors Club, so maybe you could ask him.
No love for Andre DeGrasse?
No. He's good, don't get me wrong. He's very good, but no, he's not. I wouldn't have him there. I think like RJ Barrett's going to be really good, man. Really good. And Brooke Henderson, she's right up there as well, but when I don't want to have everybody get upset, but when we talk athleticism, I don't put golf in the same level. That's all. It's a great skill sport. Requires a lot of unique stuff, not necessarily a great deal of athleticism. Well, it's true.
I agree with you, but I don't want to start that up today. It's 5 o'clock, people get all fired up on a Monday.
Oh, where's all the guys that were texting me on Thursday? I'm just wondering. It's really quiet on the text lines, Connor, when it comes to golf. A certain person was winning on Thursday, but then he's not. So now it's quiet again. Shh.
What about Leonard Fournette? He's out.
Yeah.
Hamstring. You know how long he's out for?
Who knows?
I thought you were saying greatest Canadian athlete.
No. But no,
I don't think he's Canadian.
No, well, it's kind of selfish.
Do you have him on your fantasy? Is this why you just randomly out of nowhere we're talking about? Hey, what about Leonard Fournette? Like, did you see a shiny toy come by all of a sudden?
No, actually, it is selfishly motivated. I have, what is it, the backup, Yeldon? I got him in my pool.
Well, yeah, he'll be starting for the next few weeks.
Yeah, so I'm just casually throwing
You're
out there.
You're trying to be like, oh, look at me. I'm a great fantasy GM. Oh, my God.
No, I'm just asking. I'm just curious, how long do you think he might be out for? I can't get an update.
Well, I can tell you he's out for a few weeks.
Wow. That's okay. But if you get any updates, please let us know.
You're 0-2, Struddy, to start in your fantasy.
I am.
So now it's you're going to go with the backup to push you over the top. There you go.
I might try to trade it.
That reeks of desperation in week 1. Desperation. Which is okay. We've all been there. We've all been desperate after a week. Actually, speaking of that, did you see that story? The one guy met a girl and then she gave him the wrong number, so he emailed every girl that's with a similar name to her on the campus in Calgary about it. I think her name was Michelle or something.
Really?
I'm like, if she gave you the wrong name or number, maybe she just doesn't want to get to know you. Isn't that like...
That smacks of desperation.
It's kind of like, maybe I was wrong, but the funny thing is, all the girls with that name, because he emailed all of them, they've now like joined a club, supposedly, and they're all like going to hang out together as a group. And they're like, oh, we think this is really nice. It all depends. Everybody's version. I'm like, well, is it really nice? I don't think she would give you the wrong number on purpose. So okay? Have you ever, somebody you really liked, have you ever given them the wrong number?
No.
Exactly. And nowadays, most times people give you their phone and say, put your name and number in my phone. Lots of people do that. So, sorry, dude. She just didn't want you to have her number.
But I thought you were going to say he found love. Like one of the girls emailed back and said, hey, I'll go out with you.
No. Yeah, that'd be funny, though. Let's get to Connor Halley. We know the con man's never done that. He's never been on a date. Sports Center Update brought to you by Jet Label and Packaging. Big supporters of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation and their ride to defeat diabetes. Comes up on September 21st. You want to join in, help out, go to jdrf.ca/revolution.